Welcome to those that are online, welcome to those that are on Facebook, and welcome to those that are live in person. Yay! Yes, indeed. At any point, we welcome you to ask some questions. I think this is going to be a very informative and very exciting class. It's not often that we get to have a class on Chassidic teachings, or Chassidic philosophy, and call it Arrested and Development. I don't even know where I got the name from, but I did Google it, and we found out that it is really a show, and Gitti made a very beautiful flyer. So we are going to discuss today two things you want to know. Number one is a little bit the history of the Chassidic movement, how it evolved, how did it become so popular. And the second thing is what makes us tick. What do Chassidic people say, oh, the Chassidim, why are they always happy? What gives them, what are they all about? And every person has something of who they are, their identity, of what they are. I was in Brazil, right? They live, not Brazil, Argentina. They live for barbecues, which is something I can relate to. Very beautiful, that's my type of life. But what exactly do Chassidic Jews, what is their philosophy in life? What is their viewpoint in life? And I think you're going to find it very astonishing, actually, how Chassidic Jews view the world. Very, very fascinating. So we're going to begin with a little bit of a background. Movements generally come from circumstances. Sometimes good ones, sometimes bad ones. Even the Revolutionary War was part of that culture of that time. There was the French Revolution, the Revolutionary War, there were other things. It was part of something that was going on at that time in the world. So what was going on in the Jewish world when the Chassidic movement came about? Well, the world was suffering, the Jewish world in particular. Now, we've always suffered. We've always had destruction, pogroms, anti-Semitism, and so many challenges. What made this event the catalyst for the Chassidic movement? So in 1648, 1649, there was a Cossack. His name was Chmielnicki. Is that how you pronounce it? Whatever the guy's name was. He was a bad dude. And he went with his group of merry men, very prolific horseback riders, very ruthless and rough. And what they were good at is what, unfortunately, throughout Jewish history, is killing and murdering Jews. There's the famous story, I've told it many times, of these two Cossacks that are having a conversation. And Boris turns to Ivan and he says, Ivan, what are we going to do today? He says, we are going to have out to war, and then we are going to celebrate our victory and kill the Jews. They said, oh, that's beautiful, that's terrific. He says, but what happens if we lose? Then we have to go out, drown our sorrows, and kill the Jews. That's either way, the Jews are going to get the short end of the stick. And that's what happened over here when it came to the Cossacks. They disseminated, they wiped out a tremendous amount of Jewish communities. Together with that, the Jewish people as a whole were suffering financially, but also spiritually. There was a very big schism. Today it seems a little bit hard to understand this, but there was actually a schism between the haves and have-nots. Now, the have and have-nots were not the wealthy Jews versus the poor Jews. That's always been a little bit throughout society, but this was between the knowledgeable ones and the not knowledgeable ones. Can you imagine having a synagogue today that would be the peasant synagogue and the rabbi synagogue? Okay, if I had a rabbi synagogue in Mesa, that would be a very lonely club. The Rabbi's Club of Mesa would be get very lonely. So, but that's the way it was in those days. It was a very, very split. And can you imagine the rabbis, it didn't do them well, just to be among themselves. It didn't do the ordinary folks very well. And in this environment, the Jewish people needed to be infused with some type of new, refreshing concepts and energy that would give them life. And this came in 1698, the Baal Shem Tov, the holy soul of the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov means the master of good name, and it is a title that is given to miracle workers. There are Sephardic Jews that are called Shem Tovs, that's a Sephardic last name, but the title was to someone that was known to do miracles. And he came and he changed Judaism. How did he change Judaism? So what was his philosophy of the Baal Shem Tov? The Baal Shem Tov had two new things that changed the approach to how Jewish people live. The first one was how to view a Jew. How do you view somebody? Well, if you are a Harvard grad and you are a straight A student and you look at someone that goes to community college, I don't know, whatever, not that something to be ashamed of, but whatever, that's getting all D's, I'm the elitist and you're the... Well, do you look at Jews that way? Do we look at someone that's a scholar as a very great person and a person that's simple? Do you look at them lowly? And the Baal Shem Tov says that every one of us possesses a soul. The soul is part of God, and nobody can know the true value of the soul. So perhaps the guy with the big white beard that spends his whole day learning Torah, and you could try to put him on his pedestal, who said that he is superior to the simple guy that goes and works as a pharmacist and earns $100 a week and gives $10 to charity and recites psalms with sincerity and piousness and goes to synagogue? Who says one is greater than the other? You can't know. And he used to extol the virtues of simple folks. He used to go to the marketplace and he used to say, Chaim, Moshe, Isaac, how was your day today? And the person would say, thank God, Hashem helped me today. I was able to sell a couple of things and I'm able to make ends meet. Baruch Hashem, thank the one above. And the Baal Shem Tov said, in heaven the angels are kvelling. I'm giving a class in Yiddish. They're kvelling, they're so happy. They said, look at this guy. He is doing so beautifully, he's so wonderful. So a person can never measure the power of the soul. You can never say that, oh, because you're a rabbi, you're great, and I'm not a rabbi, so I'm a simple person. That's not the way it works in the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov by the Chassidic movement. That was one thing that he taught. The second thing that he did is he brought joy to Judaism. And here I'm going to share with you something that's going to blow your mind. You know, our mitzvos, our Torah, our commandments, they go back 3,332 years. That's when the Torah was given. Our prayer book that we have, that we pray every day, goes back around 1,000 years. Our customs, wearing a yarmulke, there's different customs that we do. There's Hanukkah, for example, is a rabbinical commandment. The holiday of Hanukkah is coming up. It's from the rabbis. It's around 2,400 years. How about songs? You'll think that our songs, we have songs that go back 1,000 years, they go back 500 years, they go back 1,800 years. There's got to be some songs, I don't know, raps, something that they sang in the shtetl, you know. Come on, the shtetl version of what's it called, the 70s, disco or whatever, rap or something, whatever you want to have. It doesn't exist. The oldest melodies that we have as Jews are no more than from the time of the Baal Shem Tov. Why? Because he introduced singing and joy. He said, happiness, alacrity is expressing your gratitude to the Almighty, right? If you walk around depressed all day, I'm so sad, I'm so feel down, right? We all have things to feel down, right? I told the story last week to my Yiddish class. I said, these 4 people are sitting in Miami Beach, 4 ladies. The first one sits there and she says, oi. The second one goes, oi. The third one goes, oi. The fourth one says, can we stop talking about our kids? So here, the Baal Shem Tov said confidence, optimism, happiness. This is the key to serving God. God gave us such a beautiful gift. He gave us such a beautiful religion. Be happy about it. And that is why Chassidic Jews, by nature, It's in our DNA to be happy, to be optimistic. Does that mean we have everything that you need? Well, if you think you do, that means you do have it, right? I've met people, very, very successful people financially, and they're miserable. I think to myself, why are you miserable? Because in your mind, you don't have everything that you want. Well, guess what? Materialism is something you'll never have everything you want. There's a very interesting story told in the Talmud of a person that says, find me the heaviest thing in the world. So they found some stone, they went to Stonehenge, they went to here, they went to there, they found meteors, they're trying to find something heavy. And they put it on the scale. And the guy goes and he takes an eye, a human eye, and he puts it on the other end. And it outweighs everything. Why? Because the human eye, the human nature is no matter how much you want, you're going to want more. So I have this amount? Nope, the eye wants more. You say, okay, if I only had $1,000 more, I'll be happy. No, that's not true. It's time to work on the next 1,000. Somebody once joked, he said, who's wealthier, the poor guy or the rich guy? The poor guy just needs $1,000. The rich guy is missing 20 million because he has 20 million, wants another 20 million. So he's missing 20 million, the poor guy's only missing 1,000. So when a person is happy, you're also expressing your appreciation to the Almighty for the gifts that He has bestowed upon you. So this was a few of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, how was this met by the greater Jewish community? I would say the one word that would sum up how the Jewish community's attitude was is suspicion. What is this new movement? New movements in Judaism generally have been disasters. That has generally been new movements. Shabtai Tzvi was a false messiah. He was in Turkey in the 1600s. It caused tremendous bad things. Sorry for using such an unsophisticated term. But it was a disaster. And many other movements in Judaism caused more harm than good. In fact, Muslims did very little good. Here comes a movement that is radical in its approach. Not radical in its behavior necessarily, but radical in appreciating simple people. Well, maybe that's degrading the status of Torah scholars, which is a big no-no. You have to have respect for Torah scholars. Well, maybe the Chassidic movement is guilty of being frivolous. There's a very fine line between being happy and being frivolous. So they looked at it very suspiciously, and the Chassidic movement was not that large, so most of them, I would say, they were passively against it. And at the same time, the movement started to accelerate. After the Baal Shem Tov died, he was succeeded by a fellow called the Mezritch Magid, who was crippled. He had a foot ailment, and the opponents to the Chassidic movement were very happy when he took over. They looked at him as a unsuccessful person. He was very poor. He was a teacher, a simple teacher. He was handicapped, and they didn't look at him as a threat. However, he succeeded beyond what they could have imagined. And that started to get them very stirred up, and it got them very agitated. And at a certain point, they actually started to come out publicly, for the first time, with public letters against the Chassidic movement. When the Maggid passed away, his students divided up. There was no official successor. So each one set up camp in different places, and he had approximately 100 primary students, and each one went to a different city, and that's how the different cities became known by their names. So, for example, Chabad are known as Lubavitchers. Lubavitch is a city in Russia. Berdichev is a famous city that had a Hasidic scholar. Another famous one that was in that time was Karlin. Today we have Satmar, Bobiv. These are all cities. Satmar is Saint Moria in Romania. So all these little shtetlach set up, and more people became involved. The biggest threat to the antagonists was none other than the Chabad movement. Why? What did we do to deserve more antagonism than anybody else? And that is that the Chabad movement was led by Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi. He, first of all, was Lithuanian, right? When you're a homegrown boy, you're much more successful than someone that comes from out of the country, right? You're one of us, right? And New Englanders trust people from Boston a lot faster than they trust people from California. New Englanders are very, Massachusetts people are very sheltered. To them, long distance means going from Boston to Cape Cod. That's to a New Englander a vacation. There's no such thing. The world ends after Pittsburgh. That's where they're New Englanders, right? So he was Lithuanian. The second thing was, besides being very prolific in Chassidic thought, he was actually very prolific in Talmudic thought. And he actually composed a code of Jewish law, and that was something that attracted a very, very large amount. And I'm not going to get into today all the different disputes that there was between the Chassidic movement and the non-Chassidim. What I will say was, at a certain point, it reached a crescendo. Thank you. And what happened was that they slandered Rabbi Shneur Zalman, the founder of the Chabad movement, to the Russian authority. And he was arrested. But he wasn't arrested in the ordinary carriage, he was arrested in one that was reserved for traitors. And it was a very, very strong accusations against him. And among them was, we know that historically, the Jewish people have always supported, the Jews of the diaspora have always supported the Jews that live in Israel. That's always been the calling card of the Jewish people. And the Chassidic movement was no different. They sent large amount of money, amount that they could afford. Rabbi Shneur Zalman said something very interesting. He beseeched his followers to send money to Israel. And they would tell him that we don't have money. And our life should go first. How wealthy were Hasidic Jews in Russia in the early 1800s, late 1700s? So he said that when does your life come first if you have one bottle of water? And the question is, who is going to get this bottle of water? Is it going to go to you or is it going to go to someone else? Your life comes first. He says, but if you have enough bread and they don't even have enough bread, and now you want to have luxuries, you have to support Israel. And people gave. They gave more than they were capable of giving, but they supported Israel. They supported the poor that were there. Subsequently, when they slandered Rabbi Shneur Zalman to the Russian authorities, they said that he would like to rebel against Russia, and the proof that they gave was that he was supporting Israel, which at that point was under the Ottoman Empire. Anyway, we in the Chassidic movement believed that it wasn't just a physical arrest, but it was actually a spiritual arrest. It means it was spiritually, perhaps, the secrets of the Torah, which are found in Chassidic teachings, were being revealed in an unprecedented way. And that caused also a decree. At any rate, he was arrested and he was released 53 days later, which is today. Today is the time that he was released, and since then, this day is known as a Chassidic holiday. That's why we don't, my wife doesn't always give such delicacies. She doesn't give it even when the guests are not here, certainly not to guests, but here. And you guys honor today. She's made this beautiful feast, and it's in honor of what today is the Chassidic holiday of Yutas Kislev, the day that the founder was released. So what happened after he was released? The Chabad movement exploded. It expanded in a tremendous, tremendous way, because it sort of like opened up the gates that everybody knew that he was slandered, everybody knew that he was released, and he started to teach much, much more in very deep thoughts. And from there, eventually came to what we have today, the Chabad movement, which is one that is also, I don't want to like toot my own horn, it's a little bit corny, but today Chabad happens to be the largest network of Jewish education in the world. Now, what's behind that? What is behind our philosophy, and what makes us different than other Jewish movements in the past? And how does a Chabad person or Hasidic person look at the world and look at ourselves? So, Rabbi Shneur Zalman wrote a book. It's called the Tanya. And in this Tanya, he says that this is the cure for spiritual maladies. Now, how could one book have the cure for all spiritual illnesses? Every person has their own spiritual illness. There's one person that may suffer from melancholy. There's another person that may feel very uncomfortable with certain aspects of Judaism. There's another person that may struggle with saying the truth. There's another person that Shabbos to them is just, I can't bring myself to observe the Shabbos. So every person struggles in a different way. People struggle in relationships. Can you imagine you say, I'm going to write a book, and that's going to be the cure to all your marriage woes. My wife would sell her jewelry if that book existed. She would do anything in her power to such a wonderful book. So how does a book cure all spiritual? Well, there's one aspect of it, and from this manifests itself everything else, and that is that to the Chassidic Jew, we look at ourselves and we look at the world from a different lens than what we are used to learning, what we're used to. We first of all look at ourselves. How do we look at our individual selves? We look at ourselves that we are part of God. We are humans, but not ordinary humans. We are actually part of God. Our makeup within ourselves, we contain a godly soul, which means that by nature, our connection to God, holiness, spirituality, Torah, are embraced in a very natural way because it's part of who we are. The trick is how to reveal it. But if you do reveal it, your soul gets touched, you recognize that your primary purpose in this world is not materialism. Nobody would, if you would meditate and contemplate upon this concept, why would God put you into this world? It can't be that it is only for materialism. It can't be that way. There has to be a spiritual purpose. And then, once you determine, okay, the primary is holiness, the primary is godliness. So what is that? What is my particular contribution to that concept? So then we have to look how the world is. Well, the world is godliness. You'll say, well, it doesn't look like it to me. It looks just the opposite of godliness. Whichever perspective, if you look at politics, right? If you're Republican, 74 million people are very not holy. If you're a Democrat, another 74 million people in America are not very good. Depending on your political affiliations. How do we look at the world and say that it is a very godly, holy place? So, and also we don't see any of that. So it is explained in Chassidic teachings, something very beautiful. The world is actually created constantly. The creation of the world was not a one-time event. When a person, for example, invents or makes an object, makes a chair, what do? You took a table, put together some wood, and you created an object. The creator has no relationship. I don't know who made these chairs. I don't know who made these glass. I don't know who made the ceiling. There's no relationship to that. Once it's made, it's made. The world, however, was not made from something. Because before the world was created, there was nothing in the world. So it was made with godliness. God concealed himself in this world, and it is our job to reveal the holiness that is prevalent in this world, the godliness that is in this world. Now, if you take electricity, right? Imagine, I once gave this analogy, imagine the refrigerator would one day decide, you know something, I want to be independent. Enough of this electricity. It's too much for me. I don't want electricity anymore in my life. I want to live my own life independent of electricity. Well, you're not going to live very long, and you're not going to serve any purpose. Electricity is not the perfect analogy for how godly energy empowers the world, because the refrigerator will still last. But let's take our bodies. Imagine one day the body says, you know what, to heck with the soul. I'd like to forget about the soul. I don't want the soul anymore. Get the soul out of my body. Well, what happens to a body when the soul departs? I'm going to find that out tomorrow. I have a funeral tomorrow. The guy's soul left his body. In fact, they asked me, they said, I want to do something Jewish. What Jewish thing can I do after the person dies? It means like at the time of death. So I said, well, you say the Shema. He says, but Rabbi, you came. You said the Shema. I said, okay. I knew they wanted something like, I said, open the window of the room. They said, why? I said, it lets the soul out. It's a very special Jewish tradition. I said, okay. They were very happy. They found something they could do. Let the soul out. So when a person dies, the soul leaves the body. What happens to the body? Immediately it becomes cold, and it starts the process of deterioration. The body remains alive because it has a soul in it. Well, the world exists, not that it exists because there's divine energy in every single thing. However, it is concealed. This divine energy is hidden. So what is our job? Our job is to reveal the divine energy in everything in the world. Wait 1 second.